Yvette, I have a question for you. What is it that stops companies creating psychological safety in the workplace?
I would say they don't know where to start. They simply don't know where to start. It can be a very emotional conversation for some. It could be a conversation that requires them to talk about past experiences. It can be a delicate conversation. Um, and can it can put some people at risk of exposure, to be totally honest. But exposure, again, like conflict management, exposure doesn't have to be a bad thing. It doesn't have to be an, oh my God, I'm getting fired. That's not what psychological safety is supposed to do. You're not supposed to fear losing your job. What should happen is you should be able to have the conversation and say why it's hard to approach this topic and how can we come together to make people comfortable, or at least give people the comfort that they need to be vocal. And that would be part of promoting a speak up culture. And I say culture, not environment, culture, because everyone has to support that. So it's not just a bottom up approach, or I should say a top down approach. It's more of a bottom up approach. It's more listening to the people at the front line, hearing what's said, and understanding how that's impacting the business, and bringing that up to the people that can support those changes.
Right. I mean, George brings up a good point. So how does the company know that things have gotten out around? Sometimes you don't recognize it or even realize it. And then when you do, if you do recognize it, how do you get it back into the position you want it to be? What are the actions?
So the how do you recognize it would be low engagement. So it would be um, people missing deadlines. It would be absenteeism. It could be a list of things. And when those things are recognized, the conversations need to start. And if people need support with having those conversations, I'm here as a coach, so I can help an individual to learn how to share their feelings with their managers in a way that can be received, can be accepted. George and I are here to talk with organizations whenever they recognize that and realize that they need to address it. There are a lot of different ways in how we can get to an understanding, but we would have to start with a conversation. Sometimes surveys can be overutilized in organizations. So to start with a survey in some instances may not bring about the feel of the engagement that's desired. So you really can't take a one size fits all approach. You really do have to have the conversation to learn what there's an appetite for, to learn what was done in the past, and to see how to move it forward. Does that answer your question, Jim? And does that better?
It sort of does. I mean, it's a little bit of the parable of the boiling frog, right? You're when you're in it, and you turn the heat on, you'll sit in there till you boil to death, right? So, if you come into an organization, how do you help that organization recognize if there's a problem? I mean, the inquiry might simply be assess where we are in a continuum, and how high on the scale are we, or low on the scale are we, in creating a psychologically safe workplace.
Start with are things working, right?
Mhm.
So if things are working fine, then you've probably got all the psychological safety that you want. And by things working fine, I mean you're growing the way you want to grow. You're hitting all your deadlines. All the product launches are working fine. Everything's great, right? That's very rarely the case,
Right.
right? Start with, all right, so why? Why are people not hitting the deadlines? Why are you not growing the way you want to grow? And that's when you find out that most companies adopt the beatings will continue until morale improves approach.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so what you're doing is not working. Therefore, you need to figure out something else to do. And that's what gives you the in to have the conversation that says, well, who are the people who are actually doing the work or not doing the work? Right?
Mhm.
people in the front line. Therefore, you need to find out from them, what is it that needs to change? And that's what brings you into the psychological safety conversation. But it requires, as you know, Jim, if you start from, are you hitting your targets, right? Are you hitting what you want? And if the answer is no, then something has to change, right? And presumably most organizations have tried several different things to hit the targets before they kind of externalize that to the outside world. So you can be pretty confident that one of the things they haven't tried is actually asking the people on the front line, what's going wrong and what can we do differently?
Yeah. And that's that bottom up approach, listening to your front line because they're the closest to your clients. So listening to them, hearing what they have to say, understanding their challenges, not just in terms of what the business issue is, but what communication issues they may be having. You can be able to kind of tease out the management challenges if you listen to the folks on the front line, and then you can approach that on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, the interesting part of it is a company could be performing poorly because it has a crappy product. I mean, and people could be doing their job and still not creating success. So how do you go in and assess that? So and by the way, going into senior management and saying you've got a people problem is one issue, but going into management and saying you've got a product problem is a different one.
Yeah.
But you may have both.
The clients are going to let them know if it's a crappy product.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's one way to see the difference there. Is it that the employees don't understand the product, or is it the product isn't understandable? So
I agree. Yes.
yeah, so that would be a situation where you'd have to have that conversation with the front line to figure out what the client issues are. And in some instances, is it a problem that could be resolved and the issue just is not best understood by management because they are not able to connect with it the way that the people on the front line are? That's a possibility.